chose poorly.
Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in today to give you guys a little bit of an anime viewer guide, an anime roadmap for the Isekai type of stories that occur in anime. And if you are a casual fan, you may be wondering, what exactly is Isekai? In which case I will tell you, yes. The common understanding for Isekai is that Isekai are stories where the main character is transported to another world through various means. That's the common understanding. But if we were to use that as a definition, it's going to allow a lot of different anime to fall under it. So just for the sake of this video, I'm going to add the transference occurs at the start of the story and the story truly begins after the transference. Just to make it a little bit more clear so that we can get rid of some people saying that certain shows are isekai when it's they probably aren't. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's go back. The Isekai roadmap, I hope you guys enjoy. It's a handy dandy little guide. It just lists out some of the different possibilities that can occur when it comes to talking about isekai and trying to figure out what's an isekai and what isn't. I will let you know I am not an expert on this subject. This is just something that I cooked up after observing how people talk about isekai in general. So let's just jump right into it with the first big question. Does the character get transported to another world? If your answer is no, then by definition, this is not an isekai. I mean, this is the big qualifier. If you're saying that this is an isekai even with that, no, it's not. Now, mind you, in this category, you get anime like Danmachi, or Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? And you get anime like Goblin Slayer, because people will usually say these two anime seem like isekai. Look, just because it has some things that isekai also do does not make it an isekai. I think it's really the presence of levels. That's probably what makes people feel like it's an isekai. Also, that it's a fantasy show. But no, they are not isekai. They might be isekai-like, but they're not isekai. Now, if you answered yes, we still have to limit a few things here. So I have to ask the next question. Do they get transported via spaceship or some other space travel means? And the reason I'm being very specific with space travel means is because I want to make sure no one's going to say that Goku using instant transmission to go to another planet somehow counts as an isekai. Okay, it does it. But if you were to say yes to this question, this is honestly probably a show that the majority call a space show or a sci-fi show. You're very rarely going to get people calling this an isekai. The next question is the other world some variation of an afterlife? If you answer yes, then great, we have a problem. We'll come back here. There's a few nuances that I want to make sure we iron out, just because this is a kind of a there's some debate about that one. Anyway, if you answered no to the afterlife question, we move on to, do characters have the means to travel back and forth between worlds early on? If you answer yes, then great. This is not the most common isekai, although it may very well be an isekai by definition. For this category, we're talking about things like a restaurant to another world. Now, mind you, the anime shows that may fall under this category, there may still be some debate whether or not it's an isekai as we understand it. But, we're already on a good track. The chances are it's probably an isekai to some degree. Moving on, you ask, do characters reach the other world through time travel? Again, this is a limiting question. I have to put it in there. If you answer that yes, then you're dealing with things like Steins Gate or Dr. Stone. And I gotta tell you, no, it is not considered an isekai. This is not an isekai. This is just time travel. What you're gonna end up in this situation with is people saying that this is either a sci-fi show or even a post-apocalyptic show, as in the case of Dr. Stone. Again, just because it may look like an isekai, it does not mean it's an isekai, and parallel timelines is not enough to consider another world. It's still very much the same Earth world, just in different iterations. Now we move on. If they are not time travelers, if they are not space travelers, and if they are not just moving between worlds willy-nilly, are they transported to a world with no strong connection to a game they played or developed? If you said yes, I gotta ask, are they in a true fantasy world? And when I say true fantasy world, I mean it's a fantasy world more or less played straight. And if you say yes to that, then I have to ask, were they reborn or reincarnated into the other world? I.e., did the person die and get reincarnated into the other world as, say, a baby or a whole different organism? If you say yes to that question, then great. We are dealing with anime like Kenja no Mago, Knights and Magic, maybe even Slime. If you say no, then we are dealing with shows like Konosuba, or Isekai Cheat Magician, or No Game No Life. And I gotta add a special footnote here. There is still a little bit of a distinction that occurs, and it's whether or not the main character died before the full transference. But that would just create another subcategory. Some people just get teleported, some people get sent there after they die. Now returning to are they in a true fantasy world question, If you said no to this, then I have to ask, are they in a fantasy world with overt video game elements interfering? For example, aggressive levels, HUDs, or status windows. And if you say no to that, well, I gotta tell you, man, I have no idea where we end up. That's probably still an isekai, but it's probably an atypical isekai. In this category, I would say something like Devil is a part-timer. At this point, like, it's definitely an isekai, it's just, it doesn't fall neatly into like the established categories. Anyway, going back to the question of, are they in a fantasy world with overt video game elements? I have to ask, again, were they reborn or reincarnated into the other world? And if you say yes, then great, but I don't know what kind of world that is. I know I mentioned slime for the other side, but hey, maybe depending on how you interpret Great Sage in the slime anime, maybe you could say slime falls under this category? Sort of? Again, up to interpretation. But if you said no, that means that they are in a fantasy world with video game elements, then we are dealing with shows like Shield Hero and Death March. Let me know if anyone's got any idea about that other category there. But anyway, at that point, we finished this whole branch. Going back up to the top question, are they transported to a world with no strong connection to a game they developed or played? If you said no to that, it means that the world they're in has a strong connection to a game. So then we end up with the question, are they in a fleshed out, real, not virtual world? And if you said yes, I have to ask again for clarity. Was it only a portion of the video game that got transported to another world and become real? And a portion meaning character data, characters, or the bases or the guild houses. If you say yes to this, we're ending up in a very specific category that includes shows like Overlord and Mao-sama Retry. Shows where people got teleported into a fantasy world taking their video game like statistics. So it's an interesting little hybrid of a fantasy world and a video game world. If you said no to that question earlier though, it means that we are in a territory where it became a fully fleshed out video game world, which means we're dealing with shows like Log Horizon. Now, if the video game did not become a fully fleshed out world, it means that we are just stuck in a video game, which makes me have to question, do you consider a virtual reality video game with sensory feedback another world? And if you said no to that, good luck arguing that that isn't an isekai. We are pretty much entering the territory of arguing whether or not Sword Art Online is an isekai, and it's just not going to be a good battle to fight. So when you go back to the question and you say yes to it, you know, we're dealing with Sword Art Online, a situation where they're in a virtual world that isn't really a real world, they're just in a virtual world that they're stuck in. Mind you, Sword Art Online Alicization may not fall cleanly into this category. Okay, but at that point, at the note of Sword Art, let's return very quickly to the original problem of if the other world is some variation of an Afterlife. I want to break this one down a little bit because of the nuances. Would you consider Afterlife type stories isekais? I personally wouldn't, because the conventions that are prevalent in the most common isekai stories aren't there. But here's how I think about it. Imagine that little circle represents the world. When I think about an Afterlife story, what I'm thinking is we have the physical world and then we have like the other layer, which constitutes the afterlife or some kind of spiritual level. Now for me, the way I see this is that the physical world and the other world are very much tied together. There's a specific set of rules that govern how those two worlds interact. And like at this category, we're talking about shows like Yu Yu Hakusho or even Bleach. When I think about isekais, isekais are a bit more isolated in the worlds that they present. For me, with isekais, as you can see here, the big thing that connects the two worlds is just the fact that people can be transported between them. The way I understand it, isekai worlds only have really one point of interaction most of the time. That is specifically the mechanism by which people are allowed to transfer between the worlds. Otherwise, the isekai world has its own separate cosmology. The rules that govern, say, World A are different from the rules that govern World B, which isn't the same for Afterlife stories, since the rules of reality largely governed the afterlife along with the physical world. This line of thought can also be used to justify Sword Art as an isekai. Even though the Sword Art world exists within the original world, that is, because it's a programmed world, the rules of the reality of the programmed world aren't dictated by the original world. They're dictated by the programmer, such that the rules of those realities are effectively separate. So even though the Sword Art worlds have multiple points of interaction, the worlds are still isolated enough when it comes to the rules that govern the respective realities. And just to hammer the point home, like you look at a series like Berserk, and Berserk you wouldn't call it an isekai, even though it does have a prominent otherworldly aspect to it, but even in Berserk you can see it. The spiritual world is heavily tied to the physical world. And even though they are separate layers, they are still effectively seen as one world. Anyway, those are my thoughts on it. This is my Isekai roadmap. It's not the most perfect thing. There's a lot of spots where it could be a little bit weak. And I was shown that by friend of the channel XSpeed, who brought up anime like Death Parade or Angel Beats. Me personally, I think these things are classified under Afterlife type shows, so for me I don't really consider them isekai, but honestly, like I said before, it's up to debate. It's a little bit harder when it comes to the supernatural ones. But anyway, for the casual viewer, this will get you pretty far, I think. So, but you know, that's really up to you. You let me know, what did you think of this? Let me know down below, and let's call it there. Before closing, I'd like to say thank you to friends of the channel Schnorf, XSpeed, and Prowertastic for helping out. And also I want to say thank you so much for watching, and if you thought this video was worthwhile, please like it and share it to all your friends. Every time I say that, my soul just dies a little bit on the inside. But hey, thank you very much. Until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.